It's Friday, 6th of June 25, and I'm looking at the Hamilton by-election for the Scottish Parliament, which was the vote was held yesterday. And the first thing I'll say about is the electoral system. I think it's why don't they hold these on a Saturday and Sunday? These votes, Thursday the workers are working, usually most of them, and it's like anti-worker. These electoral system, they should be on a Saturday and Sunday. You should be able to e-vote. You should be able to change your vote at the last second, as I've said this many times. So everything's against the voter, especially working voters. Our system, archaic system. So I just wanted to point that out first. But apparently this was for the Scottish Parliament as a constituency, because in Scotland we've got constituency vote and 3 for each county or something like that, 3 for each region. I think there's about 7 regions, which I think is a good idea. That's the way it should be. I think regional's probably better than constituent totally, But if you want to make both of them, I think it's half and half. It works out. So, yeah, and Labour are rejoicing because they won, but I think it's a pretty pyrrhic victory. SNP are second, but the big news for me anyway is they're former third, despite everything that John Swinney was saying about people who would vote reform. Tories have collapsed really, but I'm surprised I've still got 6% of the vote, so I've still got. Yeah, this is the only chart I could find from Google Gemini. I tried to get it and to work being fit in the screen and that, but I didn't. There's a UKIP there. It's good to see them. 50 votes. I mean, I think their policy on the big issue is better than Reform. But to Reform, I see them as the Overton Window Party, the protest vote party, mainly on a single issue. So I'm not surprised I've done well. I mean, to me, I'm sure Labour and SNP are looking at this and thinking we're probably going to lose to Reform 1, 2, 3 years. And I'm just trying to think of how this would have worked out, because when the election campaign started in April, Labour were favourites. I don't know why. 10 to 11 they were. I don't know why that. So that's even better than evens. No idea, considering all the things that Keir Starmer's done, because this town, no offence to them, but it's probably a lot of people aren't working. I mean, there's a lot of pensioners and a lot of benefits. I don't mean that in a bad way or whatever, but so, and Keir Starmer's message over the past year has been we are the party of the worker. So if he's the party of the worker, then I think non-workers better be a bit cautious, and we've seen that on his plans for, well, the winter fuel allowance, which I call the big fossil fuel and green energy companies gas price stitch up for high profit margins allowance, because we've got our electricity prices, usually it follows the gas price because it's sort of linked to whichever is the most expensive at the time it's bought or whatever, and that's usually gas powered stations that are the dearest. Gas is actually the dearest type. Gas powered stations is the dearest type of electricity. So like green energy, say it might cost, say, £1 per milliwatt. I'm just making this up. £1 per megawatt, whereas gas is £1.50 per megawatt. Both gas and green energy goes to the wholesale market at £1.50 per megawatt. They're all making a massive profit. The gas price is international based. Dale Vince talks about this, so you can hear about him. So that's actually when the government are giving that £350 to pensioners, they're actually giving an ultra high profit to all the energy companies, including the green ones, because the gas price is so dear, the international gas price. All you need to do is de-link it, according to Dale Vince. Then green energy will be cheaper, than gas-powered electricity. Um, but for some reason it's not done. I don't think the politicians are actually aware. And this is the kind of madness we're in, you know. Anyway, on to the this result. Why was I talking about that, by the way? Um, yeah. Anyway, this Labour guy is a local guy, I think. And one good thing about the election is hardly anybody turned up for the debate on STV News, because I'm fed up with the mainstream media, political journals being so aggressive, so hostile. I mean, you wouldn't accept that. Nobody would accept that kind of behaviour. Uh, so I don't know why they're so rude. It's as if rudeness is the actual aim. Just to, I don't know, it's like a police investigation, bad cop, you know, which I don't agree with either. Good cop, bad cop, but that's another thing. I mean, all police interviews or whatever should all be recorded. The person should be given a copy or be allowed to record it themselves, etc. So none of these things, I don't know. It's a no-brainer. I don't know why it doesn't happen. Anyway, so yeah, for the STV debate, only SNP and Reform turned up. So I've got respect for all the other ones that didn't turn up, because Trump done that as well. He ignored the mainstream media mostly in his campaign. Great respect for all of them, because these debates are sort of pointless, you know. I thought we should always have head-to-head debates, but then I realised this is just pointless, you know. It's more about the interviewer than it is about the things, you know. Because if I want to hear them, I want to hear them talk for half an hour on YouTube or whatever, no, and make their own messages. I would rather hear their own messages, even replies to things that they want to do, rather than a hostile bad cop situation, you know. So I've respect to all of them for not turning up for that. SNP and Reform turned up. The idea, yeah, Labour started off the favourites 10 to 11. I don't know why, you know, who knows. But then SNP became the clear favourites. They were 1 to 7, which means that if you put £7 on, you're expected to win £1. So they were definitely, but then Reform were ended up second in the betting. They were about 5 to 1. Labour were about 9 to 1. And here Labour have won it. And personally, we don't know why yet, but I personally think that it might be that because this is the sort of area that votes Labour and SNP usually, maybe Anna Sarwar got a sympathy vote because of all the stuff about that video, because the media made it as if Nigel Farage was saying something bad about Anna Sarwar about his video. But if you've actually seen that video, let me see. I don't think that you can see that video in full, but what he said was the main things according to Google Gemini. I look at the days where South Asian communities get to lead political parties and get to lead countries is upon us. So he doesn't say what countries. You've got to imply that. We don't know if he means Africa and countries around South Asia. We don't know if he means them or that's not of interest to him. We don't know. And we don't know really what that means. And he actually referred to them, I saw it, as the curry vote. And I wonder if, if some Scots were to say that about this group, and he started off saying Pakistani and then he moved to South Asian. I'm not sure why it was a Pakistani thing, because I'm not sure Hindus and Bengals and Sikhs would associate themselves with what he's saying, although they would maybe saying the same thing to their own community. I don't know if they would refer to their own community as South Asian, I don't know. But it was actually Pakistan's 75th anniversary, and who created Pakistan, by the way? Yeah, the days where South Asian communities get to lead political parties and get to lead countries is upon us. And that was before Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister, because the nice Tory voters voted him. Oh no, they didn't actually, but well, he got put in anyway, and nobody really objected or anything. Uh, I still can't remember why Liz Truss get kicked out, or Boris Johnson. But I agree with that. I think it should be like the England manager. They should just get it put if they think they've made a mistake after a month or whatever. All parties should do that. I mean, Keir Starmer should get that. I don't know why he's. I mean, Keir Starmer, from what I can see, has not get any support whatsoever. You've not got Starmeristas. They're not going to be singing Keir Starmer's name at Glastonbury. He doesn't seem to have any support anywhere. I can't think of anybody. Maybe Rachel Reeves and that. He maybe gets a sort of techie Labour support. I don't know. And then anyway, as I was said in the last bit, the days when South Asian communities get to decide not just what school our children go to, but what they are taught in those schools is also coming. So he's saying once South Asian communities are doing well in once they get to like countries, etc. So they'll get to decide what school our children go to. Again, we've got to infer what he means by this. I think as an atheist, and I'm guessing most traditional Scots now are atheists, but personally I think he's right in the sense that we've got Protestant and Catholic schools, although nowadays I think anyone can go to those schools now. Maybe they could always, I can't remember, but now I would guess it's a sort of quite a big crossover in them. I don't know now. But both of these schools would be seen as sort of multi. I don't think they would be seen nowadays as specific for those religions, and probably 100% of the kids of Protestant Catholic Scotland are atheists anyway, so in practice, even if it. So I think he's right in saying there should be, if his community want a particular type of school. I think he's right, because I have seen pictures of polished shields, where it looks like 95% of the kids will maybe resonate with what Annis is saying here, or their parents anyway. For some reason, I mean, it's Labour and SNP that are in charge of schools in Scotland, and since Holyrood's began, say about 27 years ago, and for some reason Labour and SNP haven't let them have their own schools like he's saying here. I don't know if he was Labour leader at the time or just about to become Labour leader. So he's saying that as a Labour leader in Scotland, he could become the thingy. So I'm guessing, we need to infer, because he doesn't say, and he also says, but what they are taught in those schools is also coming. So he's saying that they're going to be taught things in these schools that are not taught at the moment. And for some reason, Labour and SNP in Scotland aren't doing what he wants on this. We don't know why, I mean, we also, for about 100 years, we had a girls' school, public school in Glasgow. But about 3 years ago, under the SNP council, it became a mixed school. I don't know if it was SNP council or the SNP education minister. For some reason, it became a mixed school. I mean, you would think that Nicola Sturgeon that would have wanted the girls' school to continue. I don't know. They might not. But we've never really understood why that school is becoming mixed, because could it be for any reason? Could it be something like SNP and Labour weren't happy? They were, because the way they thought that maybe it was for girls it was so that girls couldn't mix with boys or something like that. We don't know. Nobody said in STV News or anything like that. But for some reason SNP, probably Labour as well, want that girls' school to become mixed now. But anyway, that's what he said. So, and then we never really. I don't watch mainstream news now, so I don't know what they were talking about. But I get from what I saw from press conferences with Nigel the mainstream media were saying that Nigel, he didn't say stuff, he didn't say sectarian stuff, if you want to call it that. That's what they were calling it. That's what they're saying. And I'm wondering if the good people of Hamilton maybe gave Annis a sympathy vote because of the way the mainstream media told them. But if they actually thought about that third thing, especially that Anna said, maybe they wouldn't think. But for me, anyway, it's a pyrrhic victory because I think all traditional Scots are probably going to vote Reform soon. And I would say this because Reform would have got zero just 2 years ago or something. Now they've 26%. I think they were expected to get about, well, Britain reckon 23%, and the polls are getting about 17%. This is not a rich area, you could say it's probably quite a poor area in general. Not all, but it's got poor areas. They nearly won. If you look at that, it was nearly three-way. Even though it says 26%, 31%, when you look at the actual votes, they were only 1,500 off. So the Lib Dems are way down. Scottish Socialists, Scottish Family, they're another ones that you could vote on this issue. They get 0.8%. So if Reform had got that, 0.8% for Scottish Family, I think it's quite a big vote, considering nobody hardly knows about them. But on this issue, they're pretty strong, So that would have been 26.9% if they got that vote. And UKIP as well, 0.2, that's another 0.2%. So that would have been 27.1 they would have got. Yeah, so I just wanted to, I think it's a pyrrhic victory. I think traditional Scots are going to vote Reform once they realise the way the country's going. Really the question was, because in Clydebank recently, Reform got about 26% in quite a poor area, the waterfront. And in Easterhouse recently, they got about 23% or something in a council by-election, which is a very poor area as well. So these people are, well, we don't know why they're voting Reform, but you can imagine that they're not happy with the way their area is going. They're having a look around thinking, this isn't going to work out, this might be a mistake. It's not something we can really talk about, but to me personally, I say to SNP and Labour voters, personally I think every traditional Labour and SNP wants to vote Reform, but John Swinney calls them what they call them if they're going to vote that way. But here we've had 26, nearly a quarter, over a quarter, have not listened to John Swinney saying what he's going to call them, which has worked for 75 years. So I think it's all over for SNP and Labour, really. So this is a pyrrhic victory, in my opinion. So, yeah. Bernard Ponsonby was saying that Reform will do very badly probably next year because there's another election, Scottish election next year. We used to get to vote every 4 years, but Nicholas Sturgeon changed it to every 5 years, and apparently that's democracy for you, getting to vote every 5 years. In Australia you get to vote every 3 years, which is, I think, if you're going to keep this sort of system, it needs to be that. I think we should be like the Swiss system where we have referendums on single issues. I think we should be voting on issues, not party hampers. So, yeah. So that's what I've got to say to that. To me, personally, if I was SNP Labour politician, I'd be thinking, well, we're finished, really. Reform, if they're taking an area like this, 26%, despite John Swinney calling them what he called them. And this is not really a rich area. Yeah, I think really Labour and SNP are finished, really. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Reform's vote in Scotland will go up to 40%, 45%, maybe even 50%. Over time it's going to go down because they won't have any vote really left. Although some people might think, well, we're going the wrong way. So, yeah, they might value the way UK was, it's not something we can really talk about. Wales, it looks as if the Welsh are more sensible than the Scots. They're going to Reform quickly as a protest vote in Overton window shift. Yeah, but Scotland, it still looks as if we're, this whole situation has occurred because we're ultra nice. We've got a nice society. Anyone can create these societies. I think the only reason people should be moving is for warm, warm countries, beautiful landscapes. That's the only reason people should be moving. I wouldn't include Britain in that. So